There is a truth about desire, respect, and power that most men never hear because the world has grown terrified of what it might awaken in them. A truth that was buried under layers of sentimental noise, moral narratives, and expectations that softened the masculine core until it became unrecognizable. Yet this truth never disappeared. It waited in silence, resurfacing every time a man feels something he cannot explain, the sense that he is living far below his potential, bending where he should stand firm, offering himself where he should hold ground. Every man knows this instinctively. He feels it when he gives too much and receives too little, when he tries to impress and ends up unnoticed, when he expresses everything he feels and watches desire fade instead of grow. He feels it in the quiet moments when he wonders why the man who remains composed, restrained, and internally sovereign becomes the one people remember, follow, and desire, even without trying. The reason is simple, and it cuts deeper than most are prepared to accept. Attraction does not emerge from a man who chases, explains, or seeks approval. Desire does not ignite in the presence of emotional overexposure. Respect does not grow from predictable softness. What truly moves a woman is the presence of a man who does not fold, a man who remains intact when challenged, a man whose calm reveals strength, not emptiness, a man whose emotional discipline awakens something ancient in her instincts, something she may never confess, but always reacts to. This is not about indifference. It is not about pretending not to care. It is the forbidden code of masculine composure, the ancestral pattern of a man who governs himself before attempting to govern anything outside of him. A man who understands that emotional control is not suppression, but structure, and that stillness is not passivity, but power. This is the art the world tried to erase because men who master it cannot be manipulated, cannot be guilted into submission, and cannot be used emotionally. The cold man is not cold because he lacks warmth. He is cold because he possesses internal order. He does not collapse under pressure. He does not panic when faced with uncertainty. He does not offer his soul to anyone who has not earned access to it. His presence unsettles illusions, reveals hidden motives, and forces others to confront their own instability. That is why he is desired. That is why he is respected. That is why he is remembered. Before we move to the next part, ask yourself one question. If your presence alone reveals your value, why would you ever give explanations to those who have not earned them? The energy the world tried to tame. For generations, men were shaped into something predictable, harmless, emotionally exposed, and constantly available. This transformation did not happen by accident. It was encouraged, praised, and rewarded by a society that fears the presence of a man rooted in his own authority. The result was the rise of the softened man, the one who confuses vulnerability with self-abandonment, openness with desperation, and emotional expression with the hope of earning affection. He believes that constant accessibility creates connection, but it only erodes his mystery and dissolves the tension that desire depends on. Before this cultural shift, there existed a different masculine pattern, a man who acted from instinct rather than insecurity, a man who did not dilute himself to be accepted, a man who understood that attraction is stimulated by contrast, not by conformity. This older archetype was not wild or reckless. It was centered, selective, and internally composed. It carried a form of restraint that heightened presence instead of weakening it. That was the man who awakened an instinctive response in women, not because he sought attention, but because his self-possession created gravity. Today, this archetype is returning in silence, not as rebellion, but as necessity. Men are rediscovering that becoming emotionally predictable kills tension, that being endlessly accessible weakens respect, and that self-governance is more attractive than emotional exposure. The world may not admit it openly, but the truth remains. The man who refuses to be domesticated becomes the one who cannot be ignored. Not emotion, but internal structure. Coldness is often misinterpreted as emotional absence, when in reality it is a disciplined structure built inside a man. It is the refusal to be ruled by impulses, fears, or the need for validation. A cold man does not shut down his emotions. He organizes them. He does not avoid connection. He filters it. He does not fear conflict. He evaluates it. What makes him powerful is not a lack of feeling, but the ability to remain composed regardless of what provokes him. His stability creates a psychological field that others instinctively respond to, a field shaped by calmness instead of chaos. This internal order generates a form of influence that cannot be demanded or negotiated. It emerges naturally. When a man does not rush to correct, justify, or defend himself, he communicates something deeper. He is not governed from the outside. This activates both desire and respect because it signals rarity. Most people react instantly to pressure. Most fold when confronted. Most abandon their center to keep the peace. A man who does not do this creates a contrast that is impossible to ignore. Women feel this difference immediately. The absence of reactive behavior forces them to adjust around him. They invest more, lean forward more, and reveal more, because his stillness creates space for them to move. Coldness becomes magnetic, not because it is distant, but because it is sovereign. It shows that the man stands on his own foundation, and nothing destabilizes him easily. Reflect on this. If your emotions are not in your control, who is truly in control of you? What female attraction truly recognizes? Presence is not created by posture, voice, or style. It is created by the internal alignment a man carries when he enters a room. Women do not respond to what a man says first. They respond to what he signals without speaking. An impenetrable presence is built through controlled breath, measured movements, and the calm attentiveness of someone who is not in a hurry to impress. This steadiness communicates certainty, and certainty is one of the strongest triggers of attraction. It tells the world that the man is not searching for approval because he already knows who he is. The body reveals what the mind tries to hide. A restless gaze exposes insecurity. Over-explaining exposes fear. Excessive enthusiasm exposes the craving for acceptance. Women feel these fractures instantly. What draws them in is the opposite. A man who observes before acting, whose gaze is deliberate rather than desperate, whose energy remains stable even when the environment pulls him in different directions. This stability creates a field of gravity around him. Others sense that he does not shift easily, and that steadiness feels both safe and intriguing. Attraction deepens when a woman cannot fully read a man but can feel his strength. The impenetrable presence does not reveal everything at once. It is not mysterious by performance, but by nature. It is shaped by inner order, emotional discipline, and the refusal to let the outside world dictate his internal state. Women are not drawn to chaos disguised as passion. They are drawn to a center that does not break. Ask yourself this: when you enter a room, does your presence speak before your words do? How the cold man controls without trying. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of power. Most people speak to fill space, to avoid discomfort, or to control how others perceive them. The cold man does the opposite. He allows silence to work for him. His lack of urgency in responding creates tension, not because he is withholding, but because he is not driven by the same fears that govern others. When he remains quiet, he signals that he is not seeking approval, not craving reassurance, and not afraid of the unknown. This calm refusal to rush gives him psychological leverage without any effort. In relationships, silence becomes even more potent. When a woman speaks and a man listens without immediately reacting, justifying, or trying to fix the moment, he creates a dynamic where she naturally reveals more. She fills the space he leaves open, not out of strategy, but out of instinct. The silence becomes a mirror that shows her own intentions, desires, and insecurities. She becomes more invested because he is not competing for emotional space. He is offering stability for her to fall into. This control is not manipulation, it is structure. It is the discipline of a man who does not allow impulsive emotion to dictate his behavior. By choosing silence at the right moment, he communicates strength more effectively than any speech could. He holds his ground without raising his voice, proving that dominance is often a matter of composure rather than force. Consider this. If silence makes others reveal themselves, why waste words proving who you are? The magnetism of premium non-availability. Distance, when used with intention, is one of the most powerful forces in attraction. It does not mean ignoring, avoiding, or pretending. It means maintaining enough space for desire, curiosity, and tension to breathe. A man who is always available becomes predictable. Predictability kills excitement. It removes contrast, dissolves mystery, and signals that his time and presence are too easily obtained. Controlled distance restores value because it shows that the man's life is full, structured, and not dependent on constant attention from anyone. This distance is not created by cold behavior. It is created by priorities. A man who is focused on his work, his goals, and his inner development naturally becomes selective. He does not rush to respond, not out of strategy, but because he is engaged in something meaningful. He does not abandon his routine for the sake of temporary validation. His emotional availability is limited by design, not deficiency. This scarcity elevates him because people instinctively value what requires effort to access. Women react strongly to this dynamic. When a man is too available, they subconsciously assume they already have him. When he maintains a healthy distance, they move toward him to close the gap. The paradox is simple. The less he collapses into her world, the more she gravitates toward his. Controlled distance is not about withdrawal. It is about maintaining your center so that others must approach you rather than the opposite. Reflect on this. If you give everything too easily, what meaning can anyone attach to it? Respect, born from self-protection. A man who never bends does not live in defiance. He lives in alignment. His strength comes from knowing exactly what he will not tolerate, what he will not sacrifice, and what he will never chase. This clarity forms an internal boundary that others sense immediately. He does not raise his voice to assert himself. He does not threaten or demand anything. His refusal to compromise his dignity speaks louder than confrontation ever could. Respect forms naturally around him because people recognize that he cannot be moved by pressure, guilt, or emotional games. True self-protection is not isolation, it is prioritization. The man who does not bend understands that his peace is an asset, his time is currency, and his emotional stability is his foundation. He chooses carefully who enters his life and who earns access to his vulnerability. This selectivity is not arrogance, it is responsibility. Most conflict in relationships comes from men giving parts of themselves to people who never earned it. The man who protects his center avoids this mistake because he values himself before seeking to be valued. Women respond intensely to this type of man, not because he is hard to get, but because he is hard to shake. His steadiness creates a sense of safety, and his self-respect creates an atmosphere where games lose their power. He becomes the rare man who cannot be manipulated, the rare man who cannot be emotionally cornered, the rare man who does not bend because he does not need approval to stand tall. Ask yourself this: if you do not guard your own value, why would anyone else treat it as something worth respecting? The most attractive element almost no man uses. Mystery is not created by hiding information. It is created by revealing only what is necessary and allowing space for imagination to do the rest. Most men annihilate their own allure by offering everything too quickly. Their intentions, their emotions, their fears, their availability. They hope transparency will earn trust, yet it only removes the tension that makes attraction grow. Mystery is not deception, it is restraint. It is the discipline to let someone discover you layer by layer, instead of overwhelming them with explanations that dilute your presence. Women are deeply responsive to interpretative space. When a man leaves room for her perception to fill in the gaps, she becomes more emotionally invested. The mind is naturally drawn to what is partly known and partly concealed. If she can predict you fully, her curiosity fades. If she must observe you carefully to understand you, her engagement rises. Mystery is simply the refusal to become predictable. It is the quiet assertion that your identity cannot be consumed in one sitting. This mystery is strengthened by calm unpredictability. A man who acts from principle rather than impulse becomes difficult to categorize. He is not reactive, so others cannot manipulate him. He is not desperate, so others cannot control him. His decisions feel intentional rather than random, and this creates a riddle that draws people closer. He does not perform mystery. He embodies it by living with purpose and keeping parts of himself sacred. Consider this. If everything about you is immediately available, what is left for someone to chase? The strength of a man who accepts reality without victimhood. Moral coldness is not cruelty. It is the disciplined refusal to collapse into self-pity when life becomes harsh. A man who practices moral coldness does not look for someone to blame, nor does he seek consolation in victimhood. He confronts reality as it is, not as he wishes it to be. This acceptance creates an internal authority that few men possess. When he stops negotiating with circumstances and begins responding from principle, he becomes sharper, steadier, and far more difficult to manipulate. He sees the world clearly because he has removed the emotional fog that distorts judgment. A significant part of masculine suffering comes from resistance to truth. The truth about people, the truth about relationships, the truth about his own weaknesses. Moral coldness dissolves this resistance. It teaches the man to face consequences without complaining and to correct his own path without waiting for rescue. The result is a presence marked by gravity. Others sense that his stability is not accidental. It was earned through confrontation with reality. This increases respect, because rare is the man who carries himself without excuses. Women instinctively admire this posture, not because they want a man without emotion, but because they want a man who does not crumble when confronted with difficulty. Emotional resilience creates a psychological shelter that many find reassuring. A man who does not blame or beg, who takes responsibility even when it is uncomfortable, becomes profoundly attractive. His coldness is not distance, it is solidity. Ask yourself, if you refuse to accept the truth, how can you expect to grow beyond the patterns that limit you? The instinct they feel, but never confess. Female desire is often spoken about in soft terms, but underneath social narratives lies an instinct far more primal. Women are drawn to the man who cannot be tamed, not because he rebels, but because he carries an internal direction that does not shift to please anyone. This unyielding core signals strength, and strength signals safety. A man who stands firm in his purpose activates something ancient in the female psyche. He becomes the figure she watches, analyzes, and gravitates toward, even if she denies it openly. What intensifies this desire is emotional stability. When a man does not crumble under pressure, does not react impulsively, and does not cling for reassurance, he awakens a deep curiosity. She wonders what fuels him, what anchors him, What experiences shaped him into someone she cannot easily influence? This curiosity is desire disguised as analysis. She wants to understand him because he is not immediately accessible, and that distance stimulates the instinct to pursue. The untamed man is not uncontrolled. He is self-owned. He does not abandon his priorities for validation, nor does he dilute his identity to maintain harmony. His direction creates polarity. Women feel this contrast between their emotional movement and his grounded focus. It is this polarity that generates attraction. Not a game, not manipulation, but the natural reaction to a man who cannot be bent by the world around him. Ask yourself this: if your direction shifts every time someone disapproves, how can desire grow around you? How to incorporate presence every day? Coldness is not a mood. It is a daily discipline. A man does not become composed by accident. He builds rituals that anchor him to his center before the world has a chance to pull him away from it. The first ritual is silence, a moment each day where he observes his thoughts without reacting to them. This sharpens his awareness and weakens impulsive tendencies. The second ritual is emotional containment, not suppression, but the ability to feel without being thrown off balance. He acknowledges emotion without letting it dictate his behavior. Another essential ritual is selective engagement. He chooses when and with whom he invests his attention. This protects his energy and prevents emotional exhaustion. By limiting access, he increases his value. He also practices intentional pauses before speaking or acting. These pauses create space for clarity, avoiding decisions driven by anxiety or the need to please. Each pause strengthens his control and reinforces his presence. Physical grounding plays a role as well. A man who trains his body, breathes deeply, and maintains posture signals stability through physiology. Coldness is not disconnection. It is alignment between thought, body, and action. These rituals, repeated consistently, shape a man who moves through the world with calm authority. His presence becomes something others feel before he speaks. Consider this: if you do not train your own mind, how can you expect it to remain steady when life tests you? The cost and the glory of being a cold man. There is a price for becoming a cold man, and it is not small. When you stop reacting, many will feel threatened. When you stop explaining yourself, some will accuse you of arrogance. When you stop bending, those who benefited from your softness will call you distant or unkind. This resistance is inevitable because your transformation disrupts the dynamics that once controlled you. The cost is losing approval you never needed, shedding relationships that depended on your weakness, and stepping away from environments that punished your strength. Yet the glory is equally undeniable. A man who becomes internally sovereign stops living in fear. He stops negotiating his dignity. He stops offering emotional access to those who have not earned it. He gains clarity about what truly matters, and this clarity becomes a compass that guides his decisions. People begin to sense the difference. They approach him with more respect, more sincerity, and more intention because they know he cannot be manipulated. His presence becomes a filter that repels chaos and attracts stability. The cold man is desired not because he withholds affection, but because he radiates order in a world drowning in emotional noise. He is respected not because he intimidates, but because he stands firm while others collapse. He is remembered because he remains intact under pressure. His value is not what he gives away, but what he refuses to lose, his center. Ask yourself this: if maintaining your power costs you certain people, were they ever meant to walk with the man you are becoming? The choice that separates men from boys. Becoming a cold man is not about building walls. It is about forging structure. It is the moment when a man decides he will no longer abandon himself for acceptance. no longer trade his stability for fleeting affection, and no longer dilute his identity to avoid discomfort. This choice divides men from boys because boys seek approval, while men seek alignment. Boys respond to emotion with impulse, while men respond with awareness. Boys bend to be chosen, while men choose themselves first, and through that become the kind of presence others cannot ignore. This path requires a refusal to collapse under emotional pressure. It demands an honest look at your own patterns, especially the ones that kept you small. It requires the discipline to stay composed when chaos invites you to react. Coldness is not the absence of warmth. It is the refusal to betray your center. Once you adopt this posture, something fundamental shifts. You stop fearing loss. You stop chasing validation. You start living by principles that make you unshakable. The world will test your resolve, but those tests shape your authority. Every moment of silence, every boundary you hold, every emotion you master becomes a declaration of who you are. And when a man stands fully in himself, desire forms around him, respect rises naturally, and peace becomes the reward he carries. Remember this: being cold is not being distant. Being cold is being unbreakable. If you want, I can now refine any chapter, adjust tone, create a full narration file, or craft the thumbnail text and title suggestions for maximum virality.